Relatively recently, Polish creator Tidzimi did a handful of interviews with none other than the one and only himself, Gnembon, an official, the real deal Minecraft developer. These interviews are great. Only problem is, well, they're in Polish.
Hey, what do you mean Polish? You got a problem?
Whoa, mysterious D-boys, man, back it up. Polish is great. I have no problem with it. Like, no, I didn't mean it like that. Please, don't take it that way. Polish is wonderful. I'm not Polish, but, like, it's fine. From update numbers to sand to an end update to this single update Gnembon would love to see most. These interviews are juicy. I've done my best to sort through them and translate them. Let's take a look. Alright, so of course, first and foremost, huge shout out to Tidzimi. I'm gonna go ahead and link Tidzimi's channel down in the description below if you are Polish or like happen to speak Polish. What this could be the place for you. There's tons of fire content here. When Tidzimi's bid is all said and done with Gnembon, I believe there will be 3 parts in total to these interviews. Hey, and a little disclaimer here. I myself am not Polish. My wife is, which is pretty cool, but neither of us happen to speak Polish. For today's video here, initially I started by holding Google Translate up to the speaker, then I realized that YouTube has this cool like auto-translate feature built in. So yeah, if you speak Polish and you watch these interviews, feel free to correct me down below. Interview part numero uno is a nice little intro to the interview saga that we're gonna have here. We kick everything off with a little bit of an introduction to like the interview and Gnembon, who he really is, and then eventually we dive right into the thick of it. Now, the first part of this interview is great. There's tons of information, and we get to learn a little bit about Gnembon and all of that kind of stuff. It's a nice introduction to the interview series, and also, it's great if you don't know much on Gnembon's backstory. Because if you didn't know, Gnembon's actually got quite an interesting backstory with this game and the community in general. There is a little Minecraft Java mod known as the Carpet mod, and well, would you take a look at who that's by? The Carpet mod is a fabric mod, is currently up to date 1.21.5 snapshots, and is a mod that unlocks basically like a ton of control within the game. So yeah, long story short, Carpet mod, an iconic Minecraft mod, been around for a long time, and Gnembon is none other than the developer of that mod as well. Now, interview part 1 kind of kicks off with a bang, with Tidzimi going ahead and going right for the juicer, Gnembon asking him about an end update, and could it happen? So not only do I love the fact that Gnembon did this interview, but the fact that we jump in with a juicer, ooh, chef's kiss. Thing to know, Gnembon, a developer, so he definitely knows things, but at the same time, he's definitely under an NDA too. That'll all amount to Gnembon having to be real careful here with his word choice and the answers that he chooses. He also probably won't be able to absolutely confirm or deny anything. Now, the answer here on the end update is really interesting. And basically, Gnembon gives us a little laugh and says, well, of course, it could happen. It depends on resources and time, though. Ah, yes, of course, the old dodge and weave, resources and time. With some of these answers that are a little bit more vague, we're gonna have to kind of fill in the blanks a little bit here, draw our own conclusions, but resources and time. Of course, resources is like developers, they need to be available, and time, they're gonna need more time to work on something as massive as an end update. So what that all means to me and says is that if an end update does happen, or whenever it does, it probably isn't going to be in this new drop format that seems to be a whole lot more time sensitive. Instead, my guess here is, from the answer that Gnembon gave us, an end update would probably be one of those more major updates the devs are working on in the background, while we get smaller but still beautiful drops in the foreground. Now, the remainder of this interview, I'm sure it does have a lot of juice, and of course, if I missed anything, you let me know, but somewhere around the 30-minute mark right there, you can see Gnembon gesturing to the posters right behind him. That's because Tidzimi asked Gnembon what is a single update that Gnembon would love to see the most, and he said, an update with these things. Those things being, of course, those warm biome chooser boats that still haven't made it into the game. The desert, the savanna, the badlands, packed with a bunch of features. I mean, look, I've always thought, and I definitely have said time and time again in some of the content that I have cooked up here, that those 3 biomes would make for the perfect warm, heat, steamy, apparently flying camel update of all time. But of course, besties will be educated and restrained here in our excitement. Though it is pretty cool that a Minecraft developer mentioned that he would love to see an update that overhauls these 3 biomes that have been waiting, that is definitely, absolutely not a direct confirmation. Just thought it was interesting at the least to say that this is the single update that Gnembon would love to see the most. Fast forward 1 week later in time, and we can roll it on over to interview number 2. Now, interview number 2 is not only 20 minutes longer, but oh gosh, this interview, in my opinion, is the way more juicy part out of the 2 that I'm taking a look at today. Bam! Right in the beginning of this interview, we get asked about sand regeneration. And wait a second, sand, Gnembon. So you'll have to fill in a little bit of context for me here, but the carpet mod, Gnembon's mod, I believe there is something to do with sand regeneration inside of that mod, right? And sand regeneration, I always go back to it. This whole little image from Gnembon himself on Twitter with like the sand layers in the background. I don't I don't even know. Like, look, it's been a long time now since we've seen that sand image on Twitter. I think it was like summer 2023, but I still think about it to this day. Imagine the idea of sand layers piling up in the desert, maybe being able to create some kind of new renewable sand method. Attached to that conversation of sand renewability, it was mentioned that, hey, what if maybe the husks say, like, you take the thing out and from time to time it'll drop a little bit of sand. Almost like how the drown, when you take that thing out, it can drop copper ingots occasionally. Now, due to my lack of knowledge in the Polish vernacular department, I'm not too sure if Gnembon went on to say, yeah, that's a good idea or that's a bad idea. But the conversation ended up moving on to the idea of maybe husks regenerating or say like spawning inside of the desert temple exclusively, sort of like a witch hut with the bounding box thing. And then again, the whole husk drop the sand mechanics, so therefore you could find the desert temple, and if you were knowledgeable enough, maybe build some kind of renewable sand farm. It's a neat idea, I just don't know if it is the idea for renewable sand. Feels like you should be able to renew sand to maybe say like across your entire world and not only in the biome that might just be, at that point, easier to dig up for sand. Related to the sand conversation, way later on in the interview, Gnembon went on to say that the devs do work on a lot of different prototypes. And I mean, we already knew that to be the case, but that does again kind of check out. Minecraft updates are famously sort of a divide and conquer type situation. Let's say we had two developers over at Mojang HQ. How I believe updates are developed is, let's say we had developer A, the very technical one, Gnembon, and then developer number B, coincidentally B in B-Dogs, definitely a skulk block. Let's say we have these two developers. Maybe say Gnembon might be working on the current update, while in the background, say King B-Dogs over here, well, the king of the dogs himself might be working in the background, not on the current update like Gnembon, but maybe on a different separate update. With that context, Tidzimi asked Gnembon what are some recent features that Gnembon had his hands on, and actually, interestingly, he said the Pale Garden biome. Alongside the Pale Garden, Gnembon also mentioned that he had his hands on the Armadillo as well. Update timeline-wise, that kind of checks out. We had the Armadillo update, then we had the Tricky Trials update, Bundles of Bravery update, and then the Pale Garden updates. And I don't know, I guess it's not much of anything new. I just thought it was interesting that we get to see, whoa, that's a beautiful mountain. A, we get to see what Gnembon actually worked on a little bit, and B, it goes back to that developer situation where, like, the devs don't work on every single update together. In regards to the Pale Garden, when asked about its sometimes lacking size, Gnembon did say that the devs have learned from that situation and are trying to improve that with this new drop. Of course, based off of what we've seen so far of the new drop, that is definitely the case, with the Pale Garden biome usually, definitely not always being a little bit larger, but at least sometimes it's going to be a little bit better. Still doesn't solve the problem of everybody who went out in their worlds in survival and generated the Pale Garden in, though, and it's really tiny right now, when I guess if you waited months, it just would have been bigger. I really hope the devs can work out some kind of way to update old chunks that have been, say, generated, but maybe not built in sometime soon. For this next one, I apologize again with the vagueness. Like, if these interviews keep coming out, I'll take some time and study up on the Polish language, but please still in the meantime, tap the like button. But in the context of drops and updates and kind of like what's the difference between them or whatever, Gnembon made an interesting comment saying something along the lines of the next 3 to 6 months might be interesting. And I mean, that kind of checks out with everything that we know about the Minecraft community and what's going on with like the movie, the current spring drop update, and then of course, Minecraft Live in the spring. I wonder if that means maybe in the spring we're going to learn about the new update, and maybe we're going to learn more context with all of the drop and update stuff. Actually, learn a little bit more context of the drop and update stuff. So drops, updates, and then the numbering tied to them. Of course, the Bundles of Bravery update night drop 1.21.3. No, 1.21.2. 1.21.3 had a total of like 2 bug fixes. Yeah. Oh my gosh, what am I, a sack of bricks here? I completely forgot. Bedrock community. No, Bundles of Bravery update was definitely 1.21.40. Bundles of Bravery drop. I'm so sorry. Yeah, updates, drops, so the weird numbering system. It's all confusing. Thankfully, Tidzimi just went straight in and asked Gnembon, hey, what's going on with this? Because it's really confusing a lot of the community. And like, this is great because ever since the announcement of the whole we're not doing updates, we're doing drops thing, and the drops are just going to be random numbers now, like, I've been so confused. Like, it just doesn't make sense, and it kind of kills the hype. Now, keep in mind that Gnembon is not the developer that decided this. That decision was probably made by the higher-ups, maybe even the man himself, who knows. But Gnembon did say that, yes, we are aware that the situation is a little bit confusing, and that the devs have a solution to this confusing thing, sometime soon, but he will not say what that solution is. Oh my gosh, that's so mysterious. And look, it's not like necessarily about, say, an end update or whatever, but the idea that maybe the devs are going to rework this whole drop system, and maybe hopefully we could just go back to calling things an update again like we've done for literally 15 years of this game's existence, or at the least, like, a drop could bump up to a major number, say 1.22 for the spring update. Oh, I love it. That's such a great thing. And I mean, look, again, if it's just all about marketing these drops from Mojang's POV, isn't it a whole lot easier to call it 1.22 on both versions of the game? And yeah, that would just be so much better. I wonder so bad what this actually means and what we'll end up seeing of this. Additionally, in regards to drops, Tidzimi asked Gnembon if drops actually means more content per year, and Gnembon said, well, beautifully, yes. Gnembon then used the example of, say, a structure like the trial chambers. Instead of spending a bunch of time polishing this thing and just, well, yeah, polishing this thing so that no deep dark stuff generates inside of the structure. That would be terrible. Instead of just staying in a polishing phase for a long time on some features, the devs are able to actually move through other features a whole lot quicker. Road maps. Ah, yes, specifically this one. We remember it. It's interesting. 3 years ahead, though? Is it a stretch? Maybe? Well, yes. About midway through part 2 of Tidzimi in Gnembon's interview, we learn that Minecraft updates, though they are planned out far ahead, not just so far ahead, like years on years on years. When asked about the leaks, pretty much straight up, Gnembon said, no, the updates are not planned out that far ahead. Back on the main menu, creating a brand new world experiments. Oh, what in the world is going on with these experiments, I wonder? Like, specifically, are these experiments just gone? And in classic Minecraft developer fashion, Gnembon didn't say, yes, they are gone, but at the same time, Gnembon did not say, no, they are not gone at all. He said, basically, I don't know. Take any of our experimental updates that we have right now, the minecart update, the villager update, whatever. For these updates to come to the game, not only will these updates have to be in a place where the devs and the community alike both feel that these updates are in a good spot, but according to Gnembon, these updates will also kind of have to fit the theme of whatever the main update is. Now, that's interesting because I thought the whole idea was the drops don't have to have a concrete theme, but I'm not sure. Maybe that's an issue with my translation of Polish to English or whatever. Whoa, that music is intense. What's that? Oh, that means the rapid fire round. When asked if Minecraft Java Edition is over, Gnembon said no. Gnembon also mentioned, like we mentioned earlier on, that the developers are currently working on multiple updates, not just the current spring update. There's stuff going on in the background. When asked about the tuff golem, the copper golem, and how those things are beautiful and how they would have maybe fit other updates in the past, Gnembon said, well, I didn't work on some of those updates in the past, and I don't know if they're ever going to come to the game. Maybe. All in all, even if I have no clue what Polish is, this Gnembon interview was a super great listen. The questions were amazing. Genuinely, on the off chance that he ends up seeing this, great job, Tidzimi. That was fire. And yeah, I just think it's so cool that the developers actually do these kinds of things. Side note, what do you think about my brand new studio? I lost the OG one from this one right here, but that's okay, it's okay. I went ahead and moved to a bigger one. We got Bonzo here and all of this beautiful ambiance. I still got to move all of my other stuff in though. Anyways, if you find any more juice inside of the interview that I somehow missed in this video, tell me about it down below or on the subreddit. I love the subreddit has been more active lately, it's fire. And well, that's all I got for you today. Smash a like, subscribe, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you very much.